UPMC, which is on any given day, $11–12 billion organization. We have 22 hospitals. I think most people think of UPMC as a hospital system, but truly we are globally integrated. Most of what I think UPMC will be known for in the future won't actually be healthcare in the sense of patients. We have a technology development center that works on next generation technology through a lot of collaborations with GE, Alcatel-Lucent, and perhaps someone like you. I also think that because we have a health plan and a health center, what people think of as what we do inside of Pittsburgh, but it's also really, if you are sitting in rooms with some of our executives, you will hear us talk about the future of UPMC being actually outside, not of the of Pennsylvania, but actually outside of the United States with growing cancer centers. And you remember the days of IBM Global Services when they first launched to try to help organizations think through how to put IT in their systems and connectivity. That's what UPMC will be doing in healthcare, helping new organizations, physicians, doctors, consultants actually think about healthcare systems. So that is who I am and that is what I do. And I would like to then start with, how about we start with Angela, and then we're going to come to this side, and then we'll go back to that side, and we'll come to Kevin or KP last. Is that fair? So that we have a little bit of worker. All right?
Yeah, sounds good.
In the spirit of inclusion. All right. All right.
So hello, my name is Angela McCaffrey, and I am the Chief Executive Officer at Bittenbender Construction. We are a woman-owned general contractor and commercial construction manager in Philadelphia. Predominantly, most of our work's in Philadelphia. We do somewhat go outside the area. We're a signatory union contractor that self-performs our carpentry packages. So we have about 75 union carpenters, laborers, and tapers at any given time. And then we coordinate all the other trades under us. Our concentration in the commercial side is mostly on the academic and tenant fit-out work. We do a lot of work for Drexel University, Comcast, and smaller developers as well in the area. And over the years, we developed a niche market with parks. So we did the skate park in front of the Art Museum. We've done Sister Cities Park, Franklin Square, a lot of revitalization of the park system in downtown Philadelphia that William Penn, when he was so ambitious with the planning of our city. So it's a nice thing to kind of bring that back and be a part of that restoration in Philadelphia. We've been in business for 12 years, so I very much still view us, from me being there for 8 years, as a startup still. Some of our competitors have been in business for third generation, 100 years, 75 years. So we're continuing to prove ourselves, grow, and it was very tough through the recession as well. So I've held 5 positions with Bittenbender over the 8 years that I've been there, and I really lend that to an amazing mentor and the owner of the company, Emily Bittenbender, as well as the transparency that she really created as part of our culture throughout our organization. So it's a very open booked policy within our internal staff members and also with all of our vendors, subcontractors, and suppliers. We're very accessible, and we kind of built a brand based on the accessibility and that we're easy to approach. So here I am, and thanks for having me today.
Thank you. And I have a little...
So first is good morning. The best practice is learn from your mistakes and be prepared to learn a lot. That is the best practice. I keep thinking every day as a owner of 3 businesses. The company that I'm going to represent here is Ramtech Systems. I've been in the business for 18 years, and we provide computer hardware and software networks, which is the infrastructure. We are a value-added reseller where we do the configurations, installation, maintenance, and support. And since 2014, I would say, I'm more into the cloud computing and IT network installation and network security. Our customers are mainly 60% is the government. I work with the Air Force, 16 Air Force bases. We are a secret cleared facility, and I have 1 contract with the Navy and a couple of contracts with the U.S. Army. I also work with universities, colleges, especially with the Community College of Philadelphia, work with the airport and City of Philadelphia.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Jewel Antwine. I am an architect by training and worked in the field for 15 years. I have a 5-year-old young startup company that offers services, primarily construction management services. And I'm growing my business here in South Jersey in the Philadelphia marketplace. My company was able to launch through some of the opportunities afforded through the federal marketplace. Did a lot of work down in DC, and now I'm navigating the Philadelphia marketplace. I am here based on a relationship, and that's a core value of my company, is building a repertoire of individuals of like-minded passions and focuses. And one of my like-minded passions is diversity. And Bender afforded me the opportunity to partner with them and provide some construction management services for a large university in the city of Philadelphia, and here we are. So I'm going to keep it short.
All right.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Pochapin, and I currently serve as the Vice President of Business Development for Maztec Corporation. Maztec's unique insofar as we're one of the larger MBEs in the region, and we're about a $100 million publicly traded IT staffing firm. So we provide human capital and contingent labor to customers around the country. Interestingly enough, as we've charted our growth pattern, we realized in the last couple of years that with probably 60-65% of our revenues concentrated in our top 12 to 15 clients, that we needed to expand our business with new client acquisition. So that's my focus, is driving that side of the business. I've been with the company since '98, so I've been through a lot of the growth and declines and growth again. The best practice that I would put out there today, and we'll speak more to, is really around people. You know, it's and that goes to a startup all the way to a large organization trying to grow. You can have a great strategy and vision, you can have great processes, but without the people to execute that, it's tough to get to where you want to go. So I'll talk a lot about people.
So I actually am the Chief Diversity Officer for UPMC, and so when I think about the scope of work that you all do, I think about it in the context of a large organization. And I also think that some of us had brief conversations before this, talking about, well, whose role is diversity and what does the Chief Diversity Officer do, and does supplier diversity report to you, and all of that. But I also think that the framing around this does start with the organization's culture. So if you're trying to do business with an organization that almost has no framing around the conversations around the commitment to diversity, it makes it much harder. I also think that there is a difference between the context of them seeing you as a business partner or doing business with you because you are diverse, right? And I think that oftentimes businesses are put in a position to represent themselves as a business when in some cases they don't necessarily always see them as the same. Doing business with somebody who's diverse, they don't always see it. And I'm not saying they as in one organization, I mean in some cases as individuals. So we thought that we would start talking about the importance of core values in an organization and why they are important. And I thought that based on some of our previous conversations that led up to this, that maybe, Jewel, you might think about that. Tell us about the core values of your organization and why are they important.
As I stated in my intro, I think our core value with my company is really built around surrounding yourself with people that have a mind like you, that think like you, have a passion like you. And it will allow you often to grow your business in that capacity. As stated, I've worked many years in a design firm and was fine working in a design firm. And I met Emily Bittenbender and when I decided to open my business, general construction company, I went to her, she said, come in, I'm going to show you how this is done. That is unheard of. People just won't open their doors to you and introduce you to their clients and help you grow your business just off the cuff. That was a relationship that was cultivated over 6 years, and that's just one of many relationships that I have. And it's only because I surround myself with people who have a like-minded passion. as I do. Love for industry, and I love to see the industry more diverse.
So the word diversity is often can be described as something that everybody talks about. I was having lunch with a group of people yesterday, and someone said that sometimes an organization's commitment to diversity is like an individual's commitment to losing weight. We know all the things we should do and we could do, and yet we still have living hard for dessert, right? Mm-hmm. I think that in many cases, it does begin with the people in the organization. So, Kevin, you earlier mentioned about the people in the organization. Why don't you talk about hiring? How does that affect your business, and how does it affect an organization thinking about a commitment to diversity?
Sure. Well, certainly, first and foremost, you got to understand the culture of the company and, the types of roles that you're looking to fill. So we spend a lot of time in tools. We've invested in people and processes and tools to first really document and understand what is it that we need people to do and what type of people across the spectrum of diversity, what are the behavioral patterns and type of person that's needed in a specific role. It's very different to go out and hire a business development sales hunter as it is to hire somebody who's going to be doing, very, task-oriented jobs, right? So it's really important to understand what is it that you need them to do, what's that type of person, and then mirror that model to looking for those traits in the people that you hire. And we use a tool called the predictive index, like the Myers-Briggs and other psychological assessment, behavioral assessment tools. And that's proven very, it oftentimes may not tell us if somebody's going to be successful in a role, but it will tell us if someone's going to not be successful in a role. And that spans all of different segments and diversity aspects of the talent pool out there. That's been my biggest challenge in the last year in growing my business. I've got a great go-to-market strategy. I spent many years putting repeatable processes in place, which are really important to grow a company from a startup mentality to critical mass. And my challenge is, especially in the age of the millennials, is finding the right people to execute that. And then I'll add to that and then stop talking, that it becomes much more of I spoke of it as a hiring tool. It becomes much more of a management tool because, success once people are in the organization is about building teams and cultivating individuals' full talent and capabilities. And, these methodologies help you to assess groups of people and understand how to make effective work groups and how to really pull out of an individual their most potential and, team up the right people together to be effective. And I can share with you more information after the fact about some of those tools if you're interested. They're really cool.
I can attest to it. I'm a PI consultant as well.
There you
So
go.
we have some idea that we should make sure that there's some alignment in values. We want to make sure we hire the right people. Now let's talk a little bit about the business itself. So Angela, you talked a little bit about growing a startup, and you've been in business now for several years, but even though you consider yourself to be young, what does it actually take to grow and drive growth, right? So you have an idea, the business has started, things are going well, but now it's time to grow. Obviously, you want to continue to make things better than they were yesterday. So what suggestions or ideas do you have around growing a startup?
Well, one of the things that we see is that when we talk about growth is there's always a fine line with growing too fast or getting the right contracts and aligning yourself with the right organizations so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket, or that you have two large contracts, one fail, now all of a sudden you're out of business. So I think you had talked about it a little earlier about really looking at the organizations that are truly committed to diversity and also to startup companies, somebody who's willing to take the chance on you, and there's a lot of them out there. Emily has always said, to all of us and to many others, is that it really truly takes a community to grow a startup, a business community. So getting out there and networking and talking to others that say, well, who have you done business with that really, gave you a nice solid contract that helped you grow that way. Slow and steady is a key thing. And then also relying on the business community for your consultants, some recommendations. Everybody has a reputation out there, whether it's good or bad, there's a reputation. And you can easily, I think, get taken advantage of, especially when you're in the early side of things. You don't really understand fully maybe the insurance side, or you don't really understand from a banker's perspective really what it means to obtain lines of credit. So many different areas, and it's overwhelming. So really putting yourself out there, being humble about it, but being aggressive and saying to others in the industry, can you lead the way for me? Can you recommend somebody? Because that is critical to the growth. Being misled could really hurt you. So just, really create relationships, navigate through the business world through those relationships, and don't be afraid to ask the questions.
So, JD, what's the best advice that you would give to a small business owner, building on what she just suggested about getting started?
Getting started, I think, is more of the best business practices that we have to believe in. One is in terms of the growth, we need to have a mission, because if you're driving someplace, you know the destiny. And if you know the destiny, you need a GPS or maybe a map. So those are the two things. So you need to have a mission, and then you need to have a business plan, especially when it comes to the growth, and then getting the right people into the job and giving them the right jobs, and prepare for the infrastructure.
So you, in some of our earlier conversations, talked about so there's a difference, I think, in growth and also recognizing when you need to diversify. I came in last night and I was talking to the gentleman who was driving, and he had really big issues with Uber. And I said, well, I think there's multiple ways that you can look at this new startup businesses, right? I said, just as Blockbuster owned the market at one time, right? You can't be mad when Netflix comes out with a new way if that's what the market is demanding. And I don't know how you all feel about Uber, that's why I'm using it as an example as opposed to one of them. But do you think about the experience that you have when you're using an Uber versus trying to get a taxi? And I said, so you have to think about what the customer experience is, and you have to decide when you're sitting in these rooms, deciding what business you're going to stay in or be in when it's time to make a change. And sometimes it's tough, right? That's why we know businesses that used to exist, whether they're big businesses or small businesses, because they weren't willing to make the adjustment, right? And you remember when somebody owned that market before whoever owns it today. And so when you start to think about diversifying your business, no matter what size you are, it's a critical decision that you have to make, because there's some investment that actually has to be made. Mm-hmm. And it's not just that Uber had an app. Uber actually tapped into something that consumers wanted. So when you think about diversifying your business, when and why is it important to do that?
Well, it is all about the market, what the customer is looking for. Just like, you gave an example of Uber, you look at the example of Starbucks and the Dunkin' Donuts, going to the Kellogg University sponsored by EMSDC, what I learned is customer satisfaction is just not the thing that you have to look for. You have to look for customer experience. So you go to Dunkin' Donuts, you might get a customer satisfaction. You go to Starbucks, it is about experience. That is what we need to focus on. Diversifying the business. Being in this IT business is all about the innovation. And with the innovation, we work on technologies. The technologies are like right now with the pharmaceutical industries, banking industry. We talk about the big data, and we also talk about data analysis, more of data, because we're trying to analyze different things. This is a new technology, and now we are using the wireless, which is a network security. And we are creating so much of data every day. Every time we talk to a person, we are entering all the information. So it is all the data. So as a small business or a medium-sized business or a large business, every day the data is increasing. When we started the business 15 years ago, having 80 gigabytes of hard disk was enough. Now we are talking about 1 terabyte. I mean, for the big businesses, let's say you have 20 people. 1 terabyte is not enough, because so many emails and all that stuff, so that's a technological change. So the reason I'm using all these examples is when I started the business, I was just with small computers and search, and then things were changing. Well, I got to get into, programming, so I got into .NET programming, and then it went down, and then to Java programming. Everything is changing in web technologies. Nowadays, we don't talk about .com, we all talk about apps. So do you have this app, you have that app. Everything is about applications on your cell phone, making it everything easy for your customers. So you need to diversify. I can't sit here and say like, oh, I'm very good with this .com programming or a .NET programming. That's not, people are not looking for. People are looking for apps on Android and Apple. So this is the reason we need to diversify our business so that you can sustain in the business.
Well, I am all about apps, and I have to tell you, I probably have more apps on my phone. I actually have a young startup business that actually is building an app for us, but they only came out with the app for the phone. I mean, for the iPhone, they didn't actually come out with the Droid app. And so, when you also, I think it's equally as important when you say you can do something and someone gives you a chance to be able to do it, that you actually are able to deliver. I think that sometimes we have a tendency to want to go into new spaces and not be ready to go into new spaces, and then sometimes we end up creating a reputation that impacts the bigger business because we tried to diversify too soon. And in some cases we weren't ready. One of the things that we talked about in sort of thinking about whether it's diversifying your business or growing your business is the importance of relationships, and how those relationships, whether they be the ones who says, help me to find an attorney so I can do whatever I need to do, or I need somebody to build an app because I'm a small business too, I might need an app in order to be effectively competitive with someone else. Let's talk about the role of relationships and why they're important. And I think that, Angela and Jewel obviously are a prime example of that, because not only are they here today, but they also work together. And so why don't you talk to us a little bit about business relationships and how they're important?
Being in business is all about relationships, because you have to have someone, you have to cultivate that relationship in order to get the job. Oftentimes, I have someone would come and say, I need a job, can you recommend somebody? Well, you have to go in and be able to sell yourself, but oftentimes that network or that relationship is what will get you your foot in the door. And so, I think that that's a huge part of what we're doing here today. But when you look at the relationship and mentorship, it's not something that happens overnight. Oftentimes people think, just like I go to Starbucks and I get a cup of coffee, bam, I'm gonna get that contract, and it just doesn't happen that way. So you meet people, and sometimes something comes out of that conversation initially, and sometimes not. But it's important to maintain those relationships, seek new contacts, and nurture those contacts. And if you cultivate that, and they get a chance to know who you are and your core values, you can actually grow a business based on purely relationships.
Angela, you want to add that?
Yeah, and I just want to add as well is that wherever you're at, even if you're at a current position and you're thinking about starting, your own company, or you look past at your, prior work relationships with others, you kind of grow up together in whatever industry, or even if it's not the exact same industry, but you start to think about the people that you've worked with, done business with in the past, and you really rely on those relationships, and it comes back to the whole, notion that you want to be surrounded by your friendship and your family with who you're comfortable with. So it's the same thing in business. It's who you trust. So if it's kind of like you never want to burn your bridges. You always want to stay in contact with people. You never know. It could be 6 months from now. It could be 6 years from now. But I've seen that, as we've kind of grown in the contracting side, it's amazing how the architects and the engineers and even on the owner side, people move around. You kind of see the same faces. They just shift roles. And they might not be able to help you right now, but down the road, they might be held in a different position, and you call upon those people, and they'll give you that opportunity because they trust you or you have a good reputation in the industry.
One of my initial contracts that launched my business, quite frankly, was based on a relationship from college. And that individual went on to be an attorney in New York and had no idea he was going to circle back to construction. And lo and behold, that was kind of my first contract. So it was something that was cultivated over 10 years.
Can I add something to that? I was struck by something that she said with respect to, when you have a relationship, you learn someone's values. And I think part of why the relationship in itself is so critical, because we hear relationship is also used very loosely. We have tons of relationships that don't result in business, which can be frustrating. But when you have a relationship, you have a vehicle to start to understand critical parts of your customer's business that you otherwise don't get. And I think a lot of businesses, and certainly small businesses, have a challenge when you respond to RFPs and try to attack business. If you don't know, the core of the business, what their pains are, the political structure in an organization, and the influencers, and all of those dynamics, you're at a disadvantage. So the relationship opens up, and gives you visibility into some of the critical path to getting the deal done and to then delivering effectively, because you really understand what the customer needs. And without that, you're kind of, throwing darts against the board in a lot of instances, and you can waste a lot of time and money. We've done that many times. So relationship is really a strong vehicle to success.
I think it's also important to know the business you're doing business with, because I can't tell you how many times people have come to us, large or small, with a package. This is what we offer. And I almost sometimes feel like I have to fit what I need into what they offer, as opposed to them giving us what we need as an organization. And I remember a person came to offer us some training, and she gave me a brochure. She never asked me, I'm going to tell you, we were together probably for 45 minutes. She never asked me once what I was actually looking to do. Was there a problem I was trying to solve? I mean, she gave a fantastic pitch about what she did. But when the conversation was over, it was already too late, because I'd listened to everything she said, and nothing that she said was really going to address what I needed. And I'm surprised at how many people come and sit sometimes in my office who don't know who our CEO is, who don't know anything about our international or about our business, who come in and they're good at what they do. They're just not maybe good at making that connection between what they do and what we do, so that we might find a love connection, or maybe not so much a love connection. Building a relationship, the right fit, right? All right, you're going to add something, JD.
Yeah, the relationship is, you can collect so many business cards, and you can have relationship with each and every person, whomever you meet. So, the focus comes into the picture. So, my target, I can give an example, and this is something I learned. I keep thinking like maybe I'm wasting time, going to this event, so I'm not going to get any business. But I can give you two examples. I've been a graduate of E200 as well as Goldman Sachs. From E200 program, I met one person. His name it's a Lindsay Construction. It's a small company. I thought whether I'll do the business with him, but I made friendship and got in contact with him.
So
and with that, this gentleman, it's a small company. It's like $600,000 business. That's it. Small office. You think this guy's not going to do anything for you. But this person, Mr. Lindsay, he connected me with the DOD, where I got secret clearance. And then he introduced to Bernie Hofwell. The company name is ESCS, which is a partner right now with another company that I have. And we got in connection with the Pennsylvania Convention Center, and then City of Philadelphia, and the airport. Within this last 3-4 years, I'll say I generated more than $2-3 million. I mean, every year we get close to $500,000 to $750,000 business from Schneider Electric, because they are big prime contractors at the airport, Pennsylvania Convention Center. So it's all about the relationship. That's one example. Second example, me focusing on the Federal Reserve. Every time I meet, Pam, I'm not talking about business, but because she needs to know me before
She's
even
great.
I talk about the business. And she called one day just like that, and the first sale was like $140. I said, okay, I'll do it. Next thing is, we get big RFPs, and now, we do close to $500,000, and we're doing a great job. And last year, Federal Reserve Bank, they nominated us for the award. So from last year to this year, we increased sales. I mean, more revenue. It's all about the relationship. That's an example I can give.
I know Pam, we haven't done any business with her. I know her when she was at Rutgers and now at the Federal Reserve
Right.
Bank. And we always make jokes with, one day we will work together, but I can call her and ask her questions and when I'm trying to navigate through the more of the public sector environment, because we do mostly private work. So she's just somebody that I can call and feel very comfortable to say, hey, I have this situation, I'm filling out an RFP right now. What does this mean? Like when they're asking this question, how do I respond? What would you be looking for? And it's just from, meeting her out, and she's just she's committed and she's passionate about it. Just like the gentleman who networked you with all those other people. It's like-minded people. Really just, as soon as you identify that, really hold on to that relationship.
So it can be said, it's not who you know, it's what they know about you and what they say about you. And I'm going to put in parentheses when you're not there, right? So when you think about this whole conversation, even about relationships, that applies in probably every sector of the world, one of the things that I think we all have as opportunities is to make some new friends, right? And when I say that, I mean that the way that most awards or RFPs or even new business is done is through relationships. It's who comes to mind, right? We all do it, whether it's a hiring decision, we call our friend and we say, hey, I need someone to do this. And the first 5 or 6 people, maybe 2 or 3 people come to mind. And so I do think that one of the things that we sometimes do minimize is those opportunities where, I don't want to go to do that. There's only a few people. It's not somebody who can help me. But I think you gave a great example of that. Because if people don't know you exist, then they can't consider you. And it is also, I think, a really big challenge when you are trying to get into large organizations. We have done probably about $1 billion over the last year, 10 years, I would say, 10 years, in supplier diversity spend as an organization. But I could almost tell you, in Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from, that most of that was probably through referral. Somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who also collaborated. And a part of that referral process has benefits, but it also has major disadvantages. Because if people don't know you exist and you don't get the referral, that means the same people all the time get the business. And oftentimes we know that happens when we know something is coming up and we already know who's going to get the business. That's how we can predict that those relationship cycles need to be enhanced. And so I do think it's one of the most important parts of business, and any part of business, is to be a part of the relationship building aspect. Now, one of the things that Angela and all of them have actually talked about was the role of mentorship. And so I think that maybe there's a difference between relationships and mentorship and sponsorship, right? That we might just have a little bit of conversation about just to build on that. Is that all right? So, a mentor versus a sponsor versus a relationship. Who wants to try to respond to that?
Don't everybody speak at once. A mentor to me is someone who you can call on for career advice, professional advice. It's kind of like, you would think if you're a religious person, you're a priest, or you're, someone you go for an advisory committee or an advisory capacity. A sponsor is almost like an investor, someone that you're looking to take a chance on you and put their money where their mouth is. And what was the last one?
Relationships.
Relationships. Well, that's, I think, the biggest piece about that is, mentorships, and they kind of go hand in hand, I think, because in my experience, a lot of my mentors have introduced me to some great relationships. That some led to businesses, contacts, some led to personal contacts. So I think, you have to just be mindful that this doesn't happen overnight. This is something that happens over a period of time.
Yes, right.
Bit of a question going back to something he said. I've realized a couple of times that I ruined the cruise by inserting an individual who just didn't fit because of his mentality, whether it was because we do 3-4 things in a day. We're like, strangely enough, cut grass in the morning, in the afternoon we're cutting concrete, and then we're doing something because we do so many things. But I realized that I would sometimes add people in that were just poisonous to the operation because they just didn't like to move around a lot. They like to do one job and do it all day long. What tools do you guys have, or what advice would you have when you have that type of situation? Do you work and try to find people that, hey, look, this kind of person worked with this one and this one stay with? Like, what do you?
So we use a specific tool. It's called the predictive index, and that exact example, I have a similar set of behavior patterns that I look for in a recruiter or a salesperson. So I give them an assessment, and it gives me 4 different behavioral patterns, and it charts them out. So you're talking about somebody who, with respect to, would be considered the C part, right? Their pace of work, right? So I give this test, and I get a graph back that says this individual is a low C, which means that he or she will not, their head will not explode when they get one assignment at 12 o'clock, and at 5 o'clock you got to do something different, something just critical, just broke, get on it. They move quickly, and they like that variety, versus somebody who's a very high C, and it shows you what that behavioral pattern fit is. They're very steady. They want, give them a couple days notice. Hey, I know that I assigned this to you. I have something critical. I want you to, wrap up what you're doing today and tomorrow, and by Friday, I want you to move over to this thing. It's just there. And you know what? The problem is we start to vilify these people because they're not doing the right thing. And meanwhile, it was on us because they're just not wired that way, right? So this test tells you up front, this person is a very high C. Don't put them in a role where you're going to have them do 6 things in the day.
I think we can all learn from that. Is that tool available?
It is
This tool, I find too many guys.
Well, and I'll say for,
I'm actually a PI consultant, predictive index. I've been working with the
She-
tool since 2000. And literally,
So
you
can
can
you
actually.
stand up so everybody can see you and
I have my card.
all right. So anybody who needs that tool has a takeaway, you good?
Absolutely.
All
I
right.
think this is the MBE growth opportunity right there. What better of a panel discussion
What's the
can we have?
likelihood, right? Exactly. But on the flip side, just to say, it also will tell you the person who's best suited, who's your steady aid, that you need to kind of keep the consistency on the team, because not everybody is going to be a trailblazer. But it's probably the best tool, because I've used Myers-Briggs, DISC, all of them, and I chose PI. Since I was head of HR for Coca-Cola, we reduced turnover from 98% down to 40% using this tool. And so that's when I became a believer of it. So when I started my own company, I absolutely wanted to be one to make sure I was pushing this tool, because it tells you what's my natural behaviors, what am I doing to make adjustments. It tells you whether or not they can sustain those adjustments, because what they're doing to make adjustments will make them show up differently than what they really are. So that's how in-depth this tool is.
All right, we had another question here. Yes.
Okay. I want us to focus in the MBE space. 2 things that I think we could do a lot better. 1 is team with each other, and 2, do business with each other. Could you talk about both of those?
oh yeah, I'd love to talk about that. I see that a lot of times it's very competitive that way, and I feel like we don't empower each other by networking amongst our own woman-owned and minority-owned firms. So as in the past, most recently that we've been doing is, now that we're at a stage where we can spend the time with our human capital and mentor some of these other younger companies or subcontractors or suppliers, we've been really working on strategically aligning ourselves. So whether there's goals or not on the project, we tout ourselves in having X amount % in participation, because that's part of our brand and that's our culture. So going back to kind of what we were talking about before, trying to identify companies, corporations, individuals that are truly committed to it, and really strengthen and fortify that relationship. And then the more you find, keep adding them on. And you'd be surprised if then it's almost like a comfort zone. Okay, we've worked together, I've worked with this firm, we're not scary, we've got the job done, we can now go to these corporations and say we finished on time, on budget, or we delivered the product we said what we were going to do. By the way, I use this consultant, or by the way, I use this sub-tier supplier. And the more that you can start building that team, but it takes time. It really does. But I agree with you. I think that more and more, companies should be doing it. Really aligning ourselves.
I'm going to give another experience sharing because, being a EO member, for the 11 years, I keep sharing the experiences. Everything is like happen or happen. And we talked about the working with the MBE. I take example of Bernie Hopewell again. And I met this person through Lindsay Construction, as everybody knows. The reason I want to take this example is, most of the contracts at the Department of Transportation, especially at the airports, IT part is small because it's all about electrical and infrastructure. So IT is only like 10%, but it's into millions of dollars. So I had to work with this gentleman, Bernie Hopewell, the ESCS Inc., which is out of Philadelphia, right? And I've been working with him since 2008, I think. My IT part is only small. Mostly it's supplying the UPS, the uninterrupted power supply. We're talking $100,000, $200,000, $300,000. And, we become a good partners, trusting each other. And I represent him. Like, when I go to the airport, I'm from ESCS. When he's going to certain places, he is Ramtech Systems. So we trust, we got into this connection. So this partnership from 2008, today, we are the partners, the real partners in this new business that I acquired in February 2015. This company name is Decision Distribution. So we are a distributor and supplier of electrical, HVAC, mechanical. So my business is close to $5 million, Ramtech Systems. His business close to $2 million, but combination, both of us, we acquired this $30 million business. So that is a big growth if you want to take an example. So a company name is probably, Angela knows about it, Decision Distribution. It's been in the business for 11 years. We acquired. So now a $10 million company, now we're taking it to $40 million. That means, we're creating employment. The MBA partnership is working. So this is a good experience sharing I can give.
And another key point of that is the only way that you could really change the whole industry is to take that model and then do it for someone else, right? So once you're able to successfully create a team of minority or DBE of companies, take it on the road. Begin to encourage them to then pull another company into the fold until you build a larger umbrella of diverse companies.
The MBE Roadshow was just born.
Maybe we have time for one more question.
Yes. Sorry for my tardiness. My name is Herman Wood with U.S. Facilities. We're one of the larger minority companies. And what you have said on mentoring and relationship and sponsorship is right on point. We as a minority firm, we probably use 65% minority and women-owned business as our subcontractors. Bernie, he just sent an application in for the airport project because we're going to be the facility manager for the airport. We manage the city of Philadelphia project. Merck, we just do a lot. But the thing is that as you were speaking, I'm listening to you, and I'm saying that what each of us have to take in mind is that as we develop, it's our task to bring along others.
Pay it forward.
We have to mentor others. I have janitorial firms now that are doing businesses on their own, where they were subcontractors to a majority company, and I made them the prime on that particular project, for us. So these are things that we have to do. You can only do that through relationships. And I think a lot, I've been around here since 2000. And I look at our company as a minority firm. In 2000, we were already at 16 million. Now we're over 100 million in facility management. We're the largest minority facility management company in the country. But the thing is, and the reason that we were successful because we built relationship with people. We built relationship with clients. They trust us, they believe us.
Right.
You don't bite off more than what you can chew. In other words, you have to be responsible. You have to do your homework.
I wanted to talk about that, actually. That was one thing I did want to say, is that when you're a young startup, particularly too, or in the first few years, you're so aggressive and you want to prove to the market. We had to be so careful because you bite off more than you can chew. First of all, financial stability, it's tough. Cash flow, you have to know your payment terms from your owners. We have some large organizations that you would think, oh yeah, they got money. They're some of the slowest pay. And it's just because they have to go through your bureaucracy to sign off. By the time your check gets signed, it's like they have to go through 5 hoops. So you're
90 days to put you out of business.
90 days.
Not only to say that, it's 90 days,
Right.
But we, as a larger minority company, we don't hold them to 90 days. We say you at least have to have 30 days. We'll front the money. We'll make sure you get paid.
Correct.
We're not going to get paid from our client, but if you're one of those subcontractors, you have to have your check every 30 days, and you better assess yourself.
You got to be careful about the size of
whether
contract you
wanna
bring
get in
on.
that business or not. Because sometimes ours may be 90 days, but that may end up being 120.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a tough.
So sometimes instead of that 30 days, you may have to be stretched out to 60 days. So, you know, but it's mentoring people, letting them know and understand the business of doing business.
Right. The most important thing is to just deliver your product or service that you sold, really. It's better to do it at $10,000 or, $500 than to do it try and do it at $10 million or $1 million. Because your reputation is really, it's what you have. And then,
And
let
it'll
everybody,
also-
let the industry buzz about you, It's,
And if you bite off those small pieces, that allows you
slowly-
to then develop relationships with the bank and have your own credit line so that you can sustain your business through some of the larger contracts.
So, fortunately, our time is coming to an end. I think that when we were preparing for this session, one of the things that I did was ask them what they wanted to talk about, and that I would frame a question around that, so you should know that this has been what they wanted to talk about. And I think if I summarize it, I think Kevin, or KP, actually has a strong background in making sure that the business has the right people, that you're developing the right people, that you're forming the right teams. When I think about Angela and Jewel, and even in their conversations, their responses came back to me as a group. They didn't say, this is what I think, this is what I think, so I don't know which one Angela wanted and which one Jewel wanted, but I think that they reflect, and even today's conversation embody the importance of building relationships and how MBEs can work together as well as businesses. And I think that JD is the example of diversification and strategy around how we get better at this. And so I think that, we come to these kinds of conferences and we meet people all the time, but I think it's also important for us to know what we need to grow so that as you meet people who have sort of a diverse range of experiences, that we build a relationship with the people who can help you do the next thing that you need to do. So whether it's PI, collaboration and partnerships, diversification of your business, as well as growing and having the right people, this is a team of people who actually attempted to share some information with you. So if you wouldn't mind giving them a round of applause. Make a new friend, as you also have people here in the audience who obviously can be new friends, who make service references. I think it is really important to differentiate between a relationship. And a relationship is when both people know that they're in it, right? It's not like I'm saying I'm doing business with them, but they're not saying they're doing business with me, right? It is also the difference between a mentor, the person who's going to help you to get more business, and a sponsor is the person who's going to call you up and say, I got some business for you, right? So, no matter what size, no matter how long you've been in business, these are opportunities not only for other people to do for us, but for us to do for others. So I'll end with these words. We can give it each day. Use this with will. We can waste it and use it for good. When tomorrow comes and they'll be gone forever. And in its place will be the friends, the relationships, and the things that we did to help other people. And in return, it will come back to us. Thank you for your time, and may you enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you.